Okay, perfect.
So one issue I really care about is climate change because I feel like it impacts all aspects of life and it's something that you don't see directly, at least if you're privileged. And so I feel like that makes people a little bit more wary of whether or not it exists or whether or not we should do anything about it. Whereas I feel like with other issues, sometimes they get shoved in your face, which is why I feel like it's so important to advocate for climate change because there are some communities where you can't ignore it because it's severely impacted your life. Like if you're in a poorer community and you've been impacted by rising sea levels and you cannot rebuild your homes because you do not have the means to do so, that is not fair if you are not a part of the cause or you don't have the privilege to act. So that's why I feel like if you are in a position of privilege, it is so important that you act on this issue. Like, for example, let's say you can not eat meat for a few days, or you can not drive as much, maybe have a hybrid, maybe an electric vehicle, maybe try to cut down your water usage, use sustainable fashion. And especially if you have the privilege to do so, it is so important that we all at least try to make a little bit of change because I feel like people think, oh, well, me doing this little thing, that's not going to do anything. But if everyone thought like that, we would never solve anything. Whereas if we all try to make these little changes, if we can and have the means to, we can make a huge impact. So yeah, that's just one of the things I'm super passionate about. Vivian,
I
do you want to
agree.
go now?
And also it's connected with other like issues, like there's climate racism where
Exactly.
they
It's incredibly
put
intersectional.
they put like factories and stuff with the most pollution in the poorest areas, so they're the ones that get affected. And if there's no world left, then there's no other issues to care about.
Exactly. I feel like we think, oh, well, it's not going to affect me in my lifetime. And it probably will. But even if it doesn't, you're going
Yeah,
to screw it up for our
your
future
kids,
generations
yes,
because
everybody.
the earth will be fine without us, but we won't be
Mhm.
fine if we ruin our earth.
Yeah,
And I feel like, especially like, okay, for example, we're like, oh, well, the solution, let's get nuclear energy. And then we put the toxic waste in communities that cannot afford to move away from it. And we give them all cancer and we think that's a solution. And
yeah.
I feel like we really need the people who are in positions of privilege to start speaking up about this because
Mhm.
otherwise we're never going to change anything because we're the people contributing the most to it and we're also the people with the most power to change it because we have access to those resources and the money to do so.
Yeah, I agree. And it's crazy because, like, we have the solutions to climate change. We know how we can stop it and slow it down.
Exactly.
But it's like, it's too expensive. It's too that. But it's like, it's our Earth. Like, are we not willing to save it?
Exactly. If we don't act now and if politicians don't start taking this very seriously, and if we in our everyday lifestyles don't start taking this very seriously, we're going to cause irreversible damage. I mean, we already have, but
Yeah.
even more so.
hmm
So, do you want to talk about your issue that you care about?
Okay. One issue I really care about is fair trade, and that is like a set of standards for, first of all, the environment, so it goes hand in hand with yours, but also labor standards, so there's no more child labor and it's safe conditions and stuff like that. And I'm really passionate about it because almost all of the brands and companies that we buy from in the US and privileged companies are exploiting people who aren't as privileged as us. And we're going into those countries and building factories and ruining their local economy. So everyone's forced to do it. Kids aren't able to go to school. They're put in dangerous situations to make our clothes. And I just think it's important to talk about because it's been so normalized that like everyone knows it's going on, but we're still willingly buying
Yeah,
clothes
the
that have been made
disconnect.
by children. And like kids are dying making our shoes and that. And so I think it's important that we as consumers, because we control what the companies do because we set demands, so we need to start calling on companies to change their ways, pay them fair wages, make it more environmentally friendly, their practices, and um, like ban child labor and stuff like that. And it goes both ways, like on a country level and that, but a lot of countries just don't have the means to ban it. So if we as consumers are who are privileged can call on the companies to make changes, then
Mhm.
they can do it.
Yeah,
from
I feel
this.
like that's so true. And especially because you have these really rich people profiting off of literally exploiting children. And I feel
Yeah,
like we need to call them out and we need to change our own habits so we can stop this. And it even happens in the US. Like, we exploit immigrants because they're not going to report all of the things that go wrong in the factories because they are afraid of being deported. It is absolutely terrible the conditions that these people are put through, even in our own country. Not to mention, if you look at other countries where it's even less regulated.
yeah,
You are
a
definitely
hundred.
right in that we need change.
And even the companies will put made on the USA like on their things to make it seem like, oh yeah, it's better. But then they'll use prison labor, which is like modern day
Yes.
slavery, where they exploit people in prisons to make their stuff for them so they can make more money, even though they're already billionaires. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that there are people like Jeff Bezos, who's going to be like, what, a trillionaire? And
Yeah.
then the workers are barely paid minimum wage. And if you look at other countries, they're not. Like, it is
Yes.
absolutely
Like the
insane. Yeah.
products in Amazon, they like use child laborers. There's been like collapses. People are just struggling, and he has so much money that he could pay everyone a fair wage.
Yeah.
And part of it is also like fast fashion and consumerism. Every year, people buy more and more stuff, and so we sort of need to change it from that aspect too. Maybe don't buy as much stuff so it's not contributing to the problem more.
Exactly. And I mean, I feel like there are some people who they can't necessarily afford ethical fashion because they don't have the means to, which is why it's even more important for those of us who can afford ethical fashion and have enough clothes that we don't need to buy more all of the time, that we're the ones who need to start changing our practices and start calling out these people because we need to make ethical fashion affordable for everyone. I feel like
Yes,
this is the same with a lot of issues, is that those of us with the most privilege need to be the ones pushing the change because oftentimes we're the ones who are ignoring it altogether. And if we keep doing that, it's absolutely not going to change anything.
100%. And there are like options for people with less money is like thrift shopping, which is
Mhm.
great because like 90% of the clothes anyway go into landfills.
Right.
So if you
Yeah.
even if you are buying Nike clothes from a thrift store, it's like it would be in the trash, so you're not continuing the problem. So there are the things, but if we call on actions from the company, then we can make all clothes ethical. So it's not like, can I do this? Am I rich enough to stop this? Or instead of just
Yeah, that's
everyone can.
absolutely such a good point. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, definitely we all need to be fighting for change right now because there are so many things that are just terrible happening right now. All
Yeah.
right.